They say war changes you. They're right, but it's not just the war itself. It's who's waiting for you when it's over. Or, in my case, who isn't. My name is Ethan. I serve in the Army for just over 6 years. I've been deployed twice before, but nothing hit harder than the last tour, both in the field and at home. I left behind a quiet life. My wife, Natalie, and I had been married for 3 years. She was soft-spoken, always humming while she cleaned, always putting notes in my duffel when I packed. My older brother, Mason, lived 20 minutes away, successful, charming, with a real estate business and a rotation of girlfriends. He always said he envied me. The steady life, the loyal woman, the purpose. I thought I had everything, until I didn't. The first few months overseas went as expected. Sand, sweat, and silence. Natalie wrote often. Letters with perfume and little jokes. Photos of our dog, Cooper, sleeping on my side of the bed. Her handwriting was my anchor. Then the letters stopped. I didn't panic. Mail could take forever, especially where we were. But after 6 weeks with nothing, I asked my CO to let me call home. I got a dial tone, then voicemail. Again and again. After 3 months with no contact, my unit was ambushed during a recon mission. I got hit. Shrapnel. Bad enough to ground me, not bad enough to kill me. They flew me to a field hospital, then out to Germany. No one from home ever called. The Red Cross contacted Natalie. She was told I was alive. She never responded. I spent 2 weeks in recovery before the Army granted me early leave and full medical separation. That's how I came home. Alone, limping, confused but alive. And no one was at the airport. My house key still worked. The house was clean. Too clean. There were shoes in the hallway I didn't recognize. A men's jacket on the coat rack. A cologne I'd never worn on the air. And then I saw it. A framed photo on the bookshelf. Natalie. Mason. Holding hands. Smiling. My brother. My wife. No explanation. No shame. Just there. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table or punch a wall. I walked to the guest bedroom and shut the door. And I stayed there in silence until the garage door opened 2 hours later. Natalie, I heard Mason say from downstairs. His voice was so casual. I'll grab the takeout. Footsteps. Then, what the F? He turned the corner and saw me. Me, standing in my own hallway. The look on his face? Not fear. Not guilt. Just shock. Like I was a ghost that came home too early. Ethan. His voice cracked. Natalie appeared behind him, a paper bag in her hands. She dropped it. Jesus, she whispered. You are alive? I finished. Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience. The silence that followed could have collapsed the walls. I didn't know, she stammered. You did, I said. The Red Cross called you. You knew I was wounded. You knew I was coming home. Mason stepped in like he always had when we were kids, ready to talk his way out of anything. Look, man, this is complicated. I looked at him for a long time. You're right, I said. Then I left. I didn't go far. I checked into a motel on the edge of town. Dingy but clean. I stared at the ceiling all night, tried to find anger. But all I felt was cold. Not numb. Sharp. Icy. Like the kind of cold that cuts instead of comforts. Over the next few days, I watched them. I didn't tell anyone I was back, except for a friend on base who promised to keep it quiet. I knew that if I was going to deal with this, I had to do it my way. They were living in the house I paid for, driving the car in my name, spending what was left of my savings. Natalie had access, and I hadn't thought to change anything before I left. Mason, always the hero of the family, had become the good man, helping a grieving widow. Except I wasn't dead. I was just forgotten. I requested a full financial audit from a bank I had power of attorney papers from before I deployed. In the last 4 months, nearly $14,000 had been withdrawn. Not for bills, not for mortgage, clothing, dinners, hotel rooms. They hadn't even been discreet. I found photos on Natalie's public Facebook account. She had changed her relationship status to in a relationship with Mason. Not widowed, not mourning, just moved on. I spoke to a lawyer. Quietly, I still had legal rights. My marriage was intact. The house was under my name. So was the car. So were the accounts. She offered advice. Document everything. Record. Save. Don't confront. Control the narrative. So I waited. I gathered emails between them. I still had access to our old shared account. One, dated 3 weeks after my last letter arrived overseas. He's not coming back. You don't have to feel guilty. Another, maybe this is how it was meant to be. You and me. No war, no waiting. My brother. My blood. What broke me wasn't the cheating. It was the lie. They had grieved me, like a burden lifted, not a life lost. They let me die in their hearts because it was convenient. But I wasn't dead, and I wasn't going to beg. I was on a rebuild. Then take everything they stole. People expect rage. They expect screaming, fists, broken furniture, something dramatic. If I'd seen real war, real loss, what Natalie and Mason did wasn't worth screaming over. It was worth ruining methodically. I stayed invisible. The motel was cheap but quiet. I cleaned up, cut my hair, and visited a trauma therapist through the VA. Told her I was readjusting, which was true, but my war wasn't overseas anymore. It was home. The first move was reclaiming what was legally mine. The house. Natalie had never taken her name off the lease because she didn't need to. I had left everything in my name like an idiot. I was the one deployed. She just stayed. Mason? He'd been crashing there for emotional support. What a joke. I had paperwork drawn up, a legal notice of intent to reclaim occupancy. My lawyer sent it quietly. No drama. No warning. Natalie didn't respond. So I filed a motion. The court date was set for 2 weeks later. While that processed, I went back to my dad's place, the small ranch house where we grew up. It had been sitting empty for years after he passed. The pipes needed work, but it was shelter, and it gave me a base. One by one, I started pulling receipts. My bank gave me full transaction history. Natalie had used my emergency card to take Mason on a weekend getaway, 3 days after she posted a tribute to my military service online. The comments were filled with hearts and prayers. I printed every one. Emails, texts, screenshots, all of it. I backed it up in triplicate digital hard drive cloud. Because if I was to detonate this lie, I wanted the blast radius to be wide. Next, I went to the realtor Mason worked with, disguised as interest in a listing. He gave me the same fake smile he always wore at family holidays. Like he was made of marble, polished hollow cold. Ethan, he said, like he just bumped into an old college buddy. Man, I didn't think you were back already. Just laying low, I replied. I heard you were, gone. Yeah, crazy world. I smiled. He smiled. The whole thing stank. Before I left, I asked, still seeing Natalie? He blinked. For just a second. Then he grinned. Yeah, she's doing good. You know, things happen for a reason. I laughed. And I left. That night, I sent Natalie a message from a private email account. No name. No header. Just a photo. Her and Mason on that weekend trip. Caption. Did he tell you what happens when someone commits financial fraud using a soldier's account? She didn't reply, but she locked down her socials. And I got a call from Mason the next day. He tried to play it cool. Ethan, man, look, I know this all looks bad, but we didn't plan it like this. I didn't say a word. He kept talking. We didn't know what to think. You were gone for months. No word. No calls. She was devastated. I was in a combat zone, I said. Not Cancun. He paused. She needed someone. And I stepped up. You stepped in, I corrected. Into my house. Into my marriage. He sighed. You can't be mad forever, man. You're alive. You've still got time to start fresh. I smiled. Yeah, and you've got about 3 weeks until you're out of my house. The court hearing for the house was swift. Natalie tried to play the emotional hardship card, but the judge didn't care. Everything was in my name. She had no lease. No written agreement. They were given 15 days to vacate. No épis. But here's where it got interesting. Instead of quietly moving out, they hosted a going-away party. In my house. Photos went up online. Friends smiling, drinks in hand, captions like "New chapter begins." It was insulting. It was also helpful. Because now I had witness lists. Faces. Names. I started digging. One of Mason's friends, a guy named Caleb, tagged him in a post that linked to a business deal. Apparently, Mason had pulled Natalie into a property flip, one he pitched to investors using my background as part of the story. Said I'd left them a safety net through military benefits. Said I'd approved the cash flow. I printed the post, the PDF, the contract listing, more fraud, more leverage. When they moved out, I had a locksmith waiting the same day. New locks, security cameras, the whole house disinfected. I threw away every item they'd bought together, towels, plates, even the damn coffee mugs. Then I found something buried in the closet, a box labeled Memories. Inside were old letters I'd written Natalie, photos of us on our wedding day. She hadn't thrown them out. She'd buried them, like me. But I wasn't staying buried. I hired a private investigator, discreet, professional, told her everything. She started looking into Mason's finances, business practices, the so-called flip project. In less than 2 weeks, she had a file 2 inches thick. He'd used my name and military status in 3 different investment pitches. Told people I was backing the project as a passive stakeholder. Even forged his signature on a promissory note. He was done. Natalie was listed as a partner on the LLC. So was I, fraudulently. We filed an official complaint with the DA's office. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was criminal. And just when things were heating up, something unexpected happened. My mom reached out. We hadn't spoken much since my deployment. She always favored Mason, said he was more responsible. She hadn't even called when I got home. But now, she left a voicemail. I heard some things, Ethan, about you, about Mason. I don't know what to believe. Call me. I didn't call. I sent her a copy of the documents. No explanation. Just the truth. She didn't reply. But 2 days later, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a photo of me and my dad, when I was 10, wearing his old army jacket, and a note. He would have been proud of how you're handling this. That was all I needed. I wasn't going to hit them. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to watch them implode. One file at a time. One lie at a time. One truth at a time. You'd be surprised how fast reputations fall when you stop protecting the people who burned you. Up to now, I'd done everything quietly, behind the scenes, gathering proof for claiming what was mine. But now it was time to turn the lights on. Let them squirm. The DA's office opened a formal investigation, not just into Mason's real estate deals, but into the fraudulent documents tied to my name, my benefits, and my signature. I didn't need to exaggerate anything. The truth was bad enough. My investigator handed over time-stamped records, emails, and witness statements. The promissory note? Definitely forged. The lawyer confirmed the signature wasn't mine, and the notary listed had retired 2 years earlier. Case opened. Mason wasn't arrested. Not yet. But now his name was on a list. So was Natalie's. At the same time, I started making a few strategic phone calls. I contacted the local VFW, where Mason had told people I was his inspiration, spinning war stories he'd never lived through. I sent them copies of the documents, the fake contracts. Their commander called me the next day. "I'm sorry," he said. "He won't be welcome here again." One down. Next, I contacted the local newspaper. Small town, close-knit. People still read the crime section over coffee. I gave them a copy of the DA filing, public record now, and told them I was willing to give a statement. They published it the next week. Veteran reclaims life after discovering family fraud. A photo of me in uniform. No smiles. Just facts. The article went semi-viral in our county. Natalie's Instagram vanished. Mason's brokerage page went offline. People started talking. Then came a call from Natalie. Blocked number. I picked up. "Ethan," she said. Her voice was thin, tight. "You need to stop." "Stop what?" "You're ruining everything." "No, Natalie. I'm just telling the truth. You don't have to do this. We were scared. We thought you were dead. Then why'd you wait 2 weeks before changing your relationship status?" She was silent. "Then, it wasn't supposed to happen like this." "I know," I said. "You thought I wouldn't come back." She cried. "I didn't." A few days later, Mason showed up at my father's house, in a suit, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, didn't say anything. He started with the same crap. "This has gone too far, man. I lost 2 deals last week. People are backing out of contracts. I could lose my license. You should have thought of that before using my name." He stepped forward. "I'm your brother." "You were." He swallowed. "You want money? Fine. I'll write you a check. To stop this." I laughed. "Money? You think this is about money?" I stepped forward. This is about the fact that I was willing to die for my country, and you were willing to bury me alive for a better girlfriend and a few clients. He said nothing. You didn't just take Natalie, I said. You took me. My name. My reputation. You used my service to sell lies. Ethan, I don't want your money, I said. I leaned in. I want you to lose. Then I closed the door in his face. More stories started surfacing. A woman emailed me, said Mason had promised to co-invest with her on a property flip 2 years ago. Took a consulting fee. Never called her again. Another guy said Mason used to brag about being close with military guys to get veterans to trust him. Predatory behavior. Patterned. Dangerous. I gave everything to the DA. Meanwhile, I kept rebuilding. My house. Freshly repainted, refurnished, reborn. My dad's old truck, restored piece by piece. And me, finally waking up without that weight in my chest. But just as things were turning, something caught me off guard. Natalie filed for divorce. Not surprising. What was surprising? She filed for spousal support. She claimed abandonment, mental distress, and loss of financial security due to legal consequences outside her control. My lawyer laughed. I've seen nerve, she said. But this is a masterclass in delusion. We countered with evidence, proof of her fraud involvement, financial theft, and emotional cruelty. Our filing included statements from my therapist, photos of her affair, and every bank transaction during my deployment. We didn't just counter her claim. We filed a lawsuit of our own. And then came the biggest bomb. Mason was indicted. Fraud, forgery, misuse of veteran benefits for financial gain. His license was suspended. His firm dropped him. He lost everything. His career, his reputation, and I assume the illusion that he was untouchable. Natalie Vanitz offline. Last I heard, she moved in with her sister 2 counties over. No job, no ring, no plan. Me? I stood in front of my house, the one they turned into a crime scene, and watched the sunset without bitterness. It set a fire, but I was the one who walked through it and kept everything that mattered. There's a moment in war when the bullets stop, not because peace arrived, but because there's no one left standing. That's what it felt like with them. No more screaming, no more messages, just silence, the kind that comes after the fires burned through everything. Natalie and Mason stopped trying to contact me after the investigation went public. They knew there was no walking it back now. The fraud charges, the frozen accounts, the article in the local paper with both their names mentioned. They didn't just lose me. They lost a version of themselves they tried to sell everyone else. The fallout came fast. Mason's brokerage let him go, officially for ethical review, unofficially because his face had become bad for business. Clients pulled out of deals. Investors vanished. The man who used to brag about owning half the county was now renting an apartment above a hardware store 2 towns over. I didn't check on him. Others did, sending me screenshots, updates. I never replied. I just saved them, quietly. Natalie's story was harder to track. She disappeared from socials. Friends distanced themselves. Most claimed they had no idea. A few messaged me privately, offering quiet support or awkward apologies. I didn't need them. She moved out of town, that much I knew. One of my old neighbors said she'd seen Natalie packing her car with boxes at night. No bouvier, no annoncement. Just gone. The thing is, I never wanted them to hurt. Not at first. I just wanted them to understand what they did, what they stole. But people like them don't learn through pain. They only learn through consequence. So I gave them that. I kept building. The house, fully mine again, became a project. I renovated the guest room, ripped out the kitchen tile we chose together, replaced it with something modern. Neutral. Clean. No traces of her. I donated the wedding album to a local art student who was making a project on failed love. She didn't know the story behind it. She didn't need to. It was no longer mine to carry. One morning, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a single sentence. You were never supposed to come back. No signature. But I knew her handwriting. I burned the letter in my backyard pit, watched it curl to ash, and never thought about it again. The most unexpected part of revenge. You don't feel victorious. You just feel done. There was no music, no fireworks, no final monologue. Just quiet. Just peace. I started mentoring younger veterans at the VFW, guys who came back to chaos. One of them said, "My girl left while I was over there. Married my cousin." I looked him in the eye and said, "Mine too, almost. Except it was my brother." He blinked. Then we laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from surviving something ridiculous and still being able to stand. One day, while driving past an old shopping plaza, I saw a familiar figure. Natalie, working a register at a small store. Head down. No muck-up. No performance. She didn't see me, and I didn't stop. I kept driving. Not because I pitied her, but because I didn't owe her anything, not even my attention. As for Mason, a mutual acquaintance told me he'd applied for a construction permit in another county. Word was, no bank wanted to partner with him. His name was tainted. His reputation, unrecoverable. And mine? Mine was finally my own again. I didn't post about what happened. Didn't tell the world. Because true revenge doesn't need applause. It just needs results. My final move wasn't explosive. It was quiet. I wrote a long email, never sent, addressed to both of them. I listed everything they took, everything I forgave, and everything I never would. Then I deleted it. That silence? That was the last thing I gave them. They'll carry their guilt, or maybe they won't. But they'll never escape the truth. And me? I don't need to escape anything anymore. I don't know what people expect from a story like mine. Maybe they want fire, a dramatic ending where I show up at their door and say something savage. Maybe they want a twist, where I take her back, or he begs for forgiveness. But this isn't that kind of story, because this isn't a movie. It's real life. And in real life, healing looks a lot quieter than you think. It took a while to feel like I was living again, not just surviving. I redecorated my house not because I had to, but because I wanted to. For the first time in years, it felt like mine. Every piece of furniture, every wall color, every drawer I opened, it wasn't haunted anymore. The space stopped whispering her name. I took up woodworking, started in my dad's old garage with some leftover tools, built a simple bench, then a table, then a few shelves. There was something healing in the rhythm of it. Cut, measure, sand, repeat. Something honest. Unlike words, wood doesn't lie. It just becomes what you shape it to be. I made new friends. Not many, but enough. One of them was a fellow vet named Andre. Rough around the edges, loyal to the core. He came over one night, looked at the house, and said, "Feels clean. Like you pressed restart." I nodded. I did. We didn't say anything else about it. That was enough. One afternoon, I found a folded note tucked under the windshield of my truck. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting again. "You are always stronger than we thought. I hope you find peace. I don't think we ever deserved you." That one, I didn't burn. I put in a drawer. Not because I forgave her, but because it was proof. Proof that she finally saw me. I didn't reply. That was my final word. Silence. One weekend, I visited the field where my unit lost 3 guys during that last mission. The Army had placed a small memorial there, and I stood in front of it with my hands in my pockets, the wind pressing against my jacket. I read each name slowly. Men who would never come home to betrayal. Men who never got to see the mess or clean it up. I lit a small candle, and I whispered, I made it out. I didn't let them win. It wasn't a victory speech. It was a vow. I started journaling. First about the war, then about the after. Eventually, it turned into a manuscript. A raw, unfiltered memoir about what betrayal looks like when you're trained for combat, but come home to emotional landmines. I called it The War at Home. One publisher bit, then 2. I chose the smaller one, the one who said, "This isn't just a story. It's a wake-up call." It's sold, not crazy numbers, but enough. Enough that I got emails from strangers. "Your story saved my life. I thought I was the only one. You made me feel seen." Funny how that works. I went to war for my country, but I found my real mission after I came home. As for Mason, he moved out of state. I heard he changed his last name, maybe to outrun the Google results. You can hide your name, but not your choices. Natalie? No word. No sightings. No updates. Just silence. The one she once gave me. Now I give back. Permanently. Sometimes people ask if I ever loved her. I don't lie. Yes, I did. Once. But the person I loved? She died the moment she chose convenience over character. The woman who betrayed me wasn't Natalie. She was just a version of herself that needed someone broken to feel whole. And I was no longer broken. This story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with truth and freedom. I didn't come back from war to burn my life down. I came back to build something better from the ashes.